Welcome, and thank you for joining me on this gentle journey through time. Tonight, we're drifting into the daily rhythms of lives long past. Ordinary moments, quietly extraordinary. Over the next 2 hours, we'll walk beside soldiers, artisans, and scholars as their days unfold beneath the sun. First, we'll march alongside a Roman legionary, from the morning trumpet call and the echo of armor clinking to the shared midday rations in camp and the camaraderie of the evening guard. Then, we'll sail down the Nile with the craftsmen who carved Egypt's grand tombs, feeling the grit of limestone under their tools and the scent of papyrus drifting on the river breeze. As twilight deepens, we'll join a Viking warrior, raising the dragon-headed Longship, sharing tales over mead, and learning how storms at sea shaped both ship and soul. Next, we'll slip into the quiet world of a feudal Japanese samurai, starting the day with silent meditation, honing sword techniques beneath cherry blossoms, and finding poetry in the hush of a tea ceremony. Finally, we'll step into the glowing forge of a medieval blacksmith, where sparks fly and metal sings, witnessing every hammer strike, every horseshoe shaped, and every whispered conversation between smith and patron. Each chapter invites you to settle in. Let your eyelids grow heavy as soft narration carries you from one era to the next. No grand battles or thunderous speeches, just the unhurried pulse of everyday life, rich in texture and laced with small wonders. So draw your blanket close, find a comfortable spot, and allow these bedtime tales to guide you toward rest. Our first stop? The carefully drilled formations of a Roman legionary's dawn. Let us begin.
The dawn of duty. The first gray light of morning steals across the plains, touching the tips of grass with silver. Inside my leather-wrapped tent, the world is still damp and cool, the straw pallet beneath me stiff and firm with last night's chill. I lie very still, the coarse wool blanket drawn up to my chin, listening. Somewhere beyond the fabric walls, hundreds of men shift, groaning, stretching, the low rumble of soldiers rising from uneasy slumber. A dog barks twice, and a sentry's boot faintly scuffs against the packed earth. In the darkness, I feel my tunic, damp at the shoulders where sweat pooled in the night. Outside, a horn sounds, sharp, insistent, echoing across the camp like a command hung on the wind. I sit up without dragging myself into awareness. My limbs know what to do. The Legion standards live in my marrow, and orders are carried in my blood. I swing my legs over the pallet, bare feet touching the cold leather flap of the tent's door. I push aside the hide curtain and stand. A ribbon of pale sky frames the entrance. The camp, a forest of tents, lies quiet but poised, like a vast creature exhaling before its roar. Already I can see faint shapes moving, cloaks pulled tight, heads bent to fasten cords. The air is crisp, a promise of frost before the sun ascends, but the scent of wood smoke drifts toward me, promising warmth. I draw in a slow breath, tasting morning. I step out flowy, tunic brushing my knees, and feel the breeze lift the corners of my cloak. Around me, comrades rise in graceful unison. The legionary, like the hunter, trusts the rhythm of orders. My gladius, sheathed at the hip, swings lightly against my thigh. Over my shoulder hangs the rolled leather that protects it. I brush my fingers across the worn strap, a gesture of familiarity. Ad coitum, rings the centurion's voice, clear, commanding. Even from the flap of my tent, I hear the precision, to assembly. I rush, no, stride with purpose, feet finding the well-trodden path to the parade ground. Others join me, some weary from the previous day's march, faces gaunt, others lithe and ready, eyes bright with the challenge to come. All of us silent, save for the steady crunch of caliga on hard-packed earth. Inspection and preparation. At the appointed place, the coats of mail and leather tents give way to the open muster field, a hard circle of trampled grass ringed by standards. My cohort's eagle, golden and proud, gleams atop its pole. I step into line, shield slung casually over one forearm. pilum in hand. Sandals crunch. Each impact is a drumbeat in the legion's song. The centurion walks the line, inspecting each soldier's kit. He pauses before me. I shift into attention. My helmet, iron, crested with red horsehair, catches the growing light. I touch it, as if to reassure myself. The rim presses cold against my brow. The lorica segmentata, the plate armor that binds my torso, sits snug and unyielding. I twist my waist slightly so the centurion can see the fit. I lift my shield, rectangular, painted red with the cohort's emblem in gold, and hold it steady. "A helmet loose costs you a punishment," the centurion intones without looking up. "A man who fumbles in battle will die." His voice is low but carries. "Mind your kit, soldier." I bow my head and he moves on. I glance at my belt, the cingulum, where my gladius awaits in its scabbard. I wiggle its catch until I hear the click of the leather bracket. I turn the clasps on my greaves, then the buckles on my sandals, all secure. It is a prayer in steel and leather, the silent affirmation that I will not fail or be found wanting. The muster rites. The centurion steps back. A cynosure, standard bearer, plants the cohort's eagle into the soil. The thick staff quivers and the crowd hushes. We snap to attention, shields aligned, feet apart. Our breathing stills, as though inhaling in perfect harmony, the long line of legionaries momentarily frozen beneath the dawn sky. "Ad quae dextrum," he calls, "right face." We pivot together, silence remains our armor. "Ad subsidium," he calls, "back to support." My shield clicks against my neighbor's, a staccato chord. In these movements, discipline finds shape. Each man knows his place, his duty, his moment in the larger whole. "Animus paratus?" he asks. "Is the spirit ready?" "Aye," we reply, a short, sharp assent that rings clear. With that, our hearts quicken. The muster has been laid, the daily ritual sealed. Testing steel and wood. Next comes the weapons parade. I draw my pilum, heavy spear, chest high. The iron shank glints like a fang. The centurion inspects. Is the wood sound, the metal straight? He taps the shaft. I watch it bend slightly, rebound. Satisfied, he nods. I lower the pilum, sheathe it, and advance to the shield line. In serried ranks, each scutum is raised. I press mine forward into my neighbors, forming an unbroken wall of red and gold. We test for cracks. I run my calloused thumb along the leather rim. No splintered wood pricks my skin. The grip beneath the rim is solid, the curvature true. This shield is my bulwark against javelins, slashes, and death itself. I lower it and step back. Across the field, the legionaries complete the same drills. The morning warms slowly, a pale sun climbs, burning dew to steam. Sweat beads beneath my helmet, trickles down my back. My legs stretch, waking from the night stiffness. Drills in iron and sand. Then, word comes, to the training ground. We form into maniples, groups of 80 men, shields at ready. At the center of the field, wooden swords stand propped like sentinels. Our centurion demonstrates the first maneuver, the thrust and withdraw, punta and reculo. He steps into the practice line, gladius raised over his shoulder, and plunges the blade forward, then snaps it back with a sharp twist of the wrist. The wood thwacks against his shield, echoes across the field. Punta, he calls. We jab. Reculo, we pull back. Over and over, metrically, we practice as if our lives depended on it, because they might. Each movement trains muscle memory, the speed of the thrust, the snap of the wrist, the posture of the shoulder. My legs bend, firm as tree roots. I feel the strain in my forearm, the stretch of my leather cuirass, the flex of calf against greave. Next, the testudo. At the shout testudo, shields rise overhead, form a second dome. I lift mine until it rests metal edge to edge with my neighbors. My elbows lock. Around me, shields lock on all sides, front, flanks, top. We edge forward in slow, synchronized steps, an armored tortoise lurching to life. Under this wall of wood and iron, I smell sweat and leather. I feel the steady press of shields, the slight give as each man takes his weight in turn. The shimmy of our advance is musical. Clap, 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 the heartbeat of Rome. A hail of arrows clatters over the shields in mock battle. We hold, unbroken, and advance again. The testudo falls, forward vault, and we disperse into lines. Breaking for the midday meal. Hours pass in drills. Every muscle in my body hums with exertion. My throat is parched with dust from the training field. The sun, now high, beats down like an interrogator. At last, relief. We form ranks once more, then march, shields up, pilum shouldered. To the camp's mess area, a row of long tables under the shelter of a grove of oaks. A dozen slave boys dart among us with wooden bowls. I step forward. Today's fare, grain porridge, thick and creamy, sweetened with dried figs, warmed over embers. A servant lad ladles it into my bowl. I add a measure of watered wine, an old soldier's luxury, and carry the bowl to a bench. We eat in silence, broken only by the clink of wood on wood, the soft talking of comrades. My neighbor, Lucius from the 2nd Manipul, mentions an incident on the frontier, a night attack by Gaulish raiders. He describes arrows ripping into shields, the screech of cavalry charges, the roar of Roman steel. We listen, nod, sip. Each story reinforces our shared memory. The legion is forged not in comfort, but in the heat of battle. I lick the last porridge from my bowl, stand up, fling the bowl aside. It thuds on the ground. A slave sweeps up scraps. I feel my strength returning with each swallowed spoonful, the warmth of the wine spreading through my chest. Quiet moments of precision. Now comes the brief respite. Some men retreat to their tents to clean their kit, others find shade beneath trees. I lean against an oak, sword belt resting at my hip, and watch. A few unread letters from home, curly Latin script, news of vineyards and markets, pleas from mothers and wives. I tuck mine back into my pouch, too dangerous to read while the centurion could pass. Instead, I unwrap my pillow and check its balance. I run a cloth over the iron tip, examining for nicks. I press the wood, listening for hollow spots. I set it aside and take my shield back in hand. Running my palm along the grain, I find a nick in the rim. Carefully, I pry a splinter out with my gladius tip. A small task, but vital. Camp life buzzes around me, laundry hung on lines, horses nickering at the stables, the aroma of stewing meats from cook fires. This lull is the calm within a storm, the eye around which the legion's chaos centers. Every task, mending, cleaning, sharpening, is another brick in the fortress of preparedness. Obstacles and endurance. As the sun tips westward, a horn sounds again, Argumana, to formations. We muster for the afternoon's endurance trials. A line of obstacles stretches along the edge of camp. Sand-filled trenches, earthen mounds, horizontal poles at varying heights. At the far end, flags mark the finish. A centurion strides along the line calling out Hapa, up. A trumpet blasts. We surge forward. My boots scream in the sand as I launch myself across a shallow trench. I vault over a waist-high log, knee snapping up to my chest. My shield bounces against my back. I leap over a higher beam, hands gripping, then push off to land and crouch, pop to my feet. Grunts of effort surround me. Muscles burn, lungs heave.
Sunrise on the Nile with the tomb builders. The first blush of dawn light creeps over the broad waters of the Nile, turning the currents to molten rose. I awake on my reed mat, the damp chill of the riverbank seeping through my coarse linen kilt and prickling the sweat that gathered on my skin through the night. The air smells of wet earth and papyrus, redolent of river mud and the promise of a new day. Above me, a lone ibis cries, a strange high note that echoes across the stillness. I sit up, arms lifting above my head in a slow stretch, and feel the pull of muscles unused to idleness. My back pops in complaint. Beside me lie my tools, a slender copper chisel, its tip smooth by years of carving, a wooden mallet darkened at the handle from my grip, and a leather pouch filled with fine sand, meant for burnishing the stone's face to a soft sheen. I finger their familiar shapes, feeling the leather's grain and the chisel's cool weight. Each piece is both a tool and a companion, my means of carving the pharaoh's immortal monument from the living earth. I rise to my feet, bare toes sinking into the reed mat and folded carefully, tying it with a scrap of cord. Around me, dozens of other workers stir from slumber. Some stretch their arms toward the sky, others shiver in the damp air.
Across the beach, the great river glitters. Small fish leap, sending silver arcs into the rose-tinted light. The barge awaits. Slipping past my comrades, I step onto the wooden ramp and board the flat-bottomed craft. Palm frond mats tied down in neat rows protect our feet from the rough planks. I settle among familiar faces. A quarryman named Setka, whose arm bears the scar of a mishandled wedge. Nefer, the limestone cutter, whose hands are calloused and stained dusty white. And Paheri, the scribe, who offers me a greeting in hushed tones. May Pata guide your hand today, brother. We sit in silence as the helmsman lifts the long oars. They dip in unison, slicing the water cleanly. Each stroke is a heartbeat, carrying us eastward toward the pale cliffs of Tura. Palm groves line the far bank, their fronds rustling like whispers. The boat's prow parts a haze of river mist. Little droplets cling to our cloaks, cooling the warmth of our skin. The limestone quarries rise from the horizon like spectral fortresses, sheer white faces veined with rust-colored seams. As the barge moors, the overseer, Murank, a lean man with hawk-sharp eyes, strides forward. He carries no weapon. His authority is enough. He calls our names, grouping us into crews of 8, 4 men at the wedges, 4 at the sledge. I join Setka, Nefer, and 3 others at the rock face. Paheri scribes on progress from the shade of a low overhang. Splitting the stone. Before us stands the day's block, a rectangular mass of limestone, perhaps 7 cubits long, 4 wide and 3 high. Its surface gleams pale gold in the dawn. Murank's voice crackles. Mark the outline. One of us draws a stick through damp sand at the base, tracing a rectangle. I press my hand against the stone and whisper a prayer to Pata, patron of craftsmen. Grant me strength, steady hand, and clear eye. With the mallet, I tap the handle of my chisel, positioning the bronze tip at one corner. I drive it home 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Each a deliberate beat. Setka and I move in concert, scoring the perimeter until a shallow groove marks our boundary. The others carve parallel lines across the face, indicating separation points. Next come the wedges. We bore narrow slots along the grooves, vertical, evenly spaced. Into each slot, we drive a dry wooden wedge. As the sun climbs, I work with wet hands. The wood drinks moisture and swells. Soon I hear the faint crack, soft, subtle, like ice forming on a pond. More wedges go in, more taps with the mallet, more cracks that widen imperceptibly. The stone surrenders in silence rather than thunder, splitting cleanly from the living rock. I step back, wiping dust and sweat from my brow. The block stands free, its edges sharp and square. Murank nods, and we guide it down a temporary ramp, lengths of cedar logs, so gently that it glides instead of crashing to the sandy floor below. Hauling the sledge. Under a linen awning, a team of oxen waits, 6 strong beasts, their horns capped in bronze. Charioteers coax them to the block. On the sledge, a platform of hard acacia wood, the block is wheeled into place. Nefer gives a low whistle, and the understanding passes among the oxen and men. Pull! Murant's command is barked once. Sand and palm oil greases the runners. Water streams down for smooth travel. We hitch ourselves to the rope. Chest muscles strain. Legs brace. Slowly at first, the sledge moves. The ground heaves and settles beneath our feet. A grunt from Setka becomes a chorus. Each footstep stirs a plume of dust. In unison, we walk, pull, breathe, the sledge inching forward like a great wheeled beast. I match my pace to the oxen's breath. Exhale, pull. Inhale, step. Sweat trickles down my back. Dust cakes my chest. Occasionally, the sledge catches on a bump, an uneven patch of earth, and I leap aside to shift a log or smooth the sand. Then back again to the yoke, yarking the rope until the block moves once more. Arrival at the plateau. At midday, the plateau appears, a broad terrace carved into the desert edge, fringed with standing stones and half-built walls. Laborers cluster in groups, masons shaping blocks, painters mixing ochre, black, and white for hieroglyphs, scribes chanting sacred texts to bless each stone's placement. The air smells of resin torches, wet clay, and barley stew. We break. A servant lad ladles cold barley gruel into my bowl, thick, salty, dotted with bits of date. I find shade under a tent frame draped in linen. The world pauses. Oxen chew cud, masons hammer their chisels. The sun beats a rhythm on our shoulders. I sip slowly, savoring each mouthful. Conversations float on the breeze. Talk of a new royal decree on grain shipments, rumors of distant Libyan tribes stirring, the date for the festival of Opet, when the god Amun's barge joins the pharaoh's barge. I finish the gruel and hand back the bowl. No idle moment here. Breaks are brief as a breath before diving back into water. Carving the hieroglyphs. In the afternoon, renewed by rest and food, I take my place at the freshly set block. I trace the outline of the hieroglyphs in chalk, an ibis for Thoth, a crooked flail for kingship, and a scarab for rebirth. My fingers follow each curve, each angle, building the design in ghost white lines. Then comes the chisel. I place its tip at the start of the first curve and tap with the mallet, a clear, resonant sound. The groove forms. I deepen it, widening until it casts a soft shadow. Dust flies in fine clouds. I keep my cheek off the stone lest it choke me. My mallet hand strikes. My chisel hand steadies. A near meditative rhythm emerges. I count taps. 1, 2, 3. Rest, shift, pursue the next segment. My wrist flexes. My fingers tighten. Soon the ibis's head glints in relief. The flail's handle stands proud. Time loses meaning. The world narrows to mallet, chisel, stone. Every tap feels sacred, each line a prayer carved into the living rock. Around me the hum of labor persists. Distant slog of sledge on sand, rhythmic chant of the painters mixing pigment, the low murmur of scribes reciting blessings. Libations to the earth. As shadows grow long, Merenk calls us to circle. He holds a jug of beer, thick, frothy, impatient with the day's final ritual. We stand around the block, tools at rest, eyes lowered. He pours drops on the ground at our feet, murmuring words to Geb, god of the earth. Receive this offering, that stone may yield yet more. Make firm this work to stand for eternity. We echo with soft amen, a whisper under the broad sky. He passes the jug. Each of us tips a measure onto the sand. We touch our chests in
Dawn on the Longship with a Viking warrior. You awake to the same hush of dawn light, though now the cry of gulls seems louder after weeks at sea. The Longship heals gently beneath you as the tide shifts, rocking you from your nest of blankets. You stretch, every muscle still singing from yesterday's labor, and push yourself upright. Across the deck, fellow warriors stir, their shadows long in the early sun. The dragon's head prow glints crimson in the glow, a silent promise of both daring and dread on these shores. Drawing your cloak tighter, you rise and move to the gunwale. The salt-tanged breeze dries the last sleep from your eyes. You lift a carved wooden cup of brine-touched water and splash it against your face, the cold driving away any lingering haze. Behind you, the helmsman's low humming underscores the lapping of waves against oak. Today, you remind yourself, the blood of battle awaits, and with it, glory, spoil, and stories to ring through halls for years to come. Morning muster. A horn carved from elk's antler sounds, soft at first, then swelling in a familiar rhythm. It calls every man to the center of the deck. You join the throng, 16 warriors standing chest to chest, shields slung over shoulders, axes gleaming at your belts. The helmsman plants a hand on the tiller and nods. He is the first to speak. Brothers, we set foot on green land today. Let our blades be swift, our shields stout, and our hearts fearless. A murmur of assent ripples through the ranks. Shields clang as they sway, mixed with the scent of iron and unwashed bodies. You look around. Hakon, the broad-shouldered, who once felled 2 Saxons at once. Ir, the swift, whose arrows never miss their mark. Yoren, the bear, who laughs when enemies flee in terror. Each is bound by oath to victory and to you. You place a hand on your axe, its haft smooth from years at your grip. For Njord's favor, you murmur, touching the pommel. The others echo quietly, some nodding, others whispering a prayer in the old tongue. Then the helmsman grunts and the horn sounds twice more. It is time. Landing and scout. With an answering shout, you surge forward. The prow grinds into shallow water. The runner scrapes sand and stone. Oars are hastily stowed. The gangplank falls with a thud. You leap down, blade in hand, boots sinking into wet sand. The world opens wide, a narrow beach backed by a thicket of pines, their needles dark as ravens' wings. Beyond, a gentle rise promises a vantage point. Wordlessly, a small party of you, 4 scouts and the captain, push inland. The forest greets you with cool shade. Every step is soft on mossy earth. Ahead, broken reeds of a stream gleam through trunks. You crouch beside it, cupping water to your lips and listening. The forest stirs lightly. A stag stamps hooves deeper among roots. The wind rustles needles overhead. No sign yet of sentinels. You raise your hand in signal. Halt. Ir, crouched at your side, shifts so you can see more of the forest floor. Fresh tracks, she whispers, pointing to prints where boar perhaps passed. This way. Quiet as moss spores drift in air, you follow her. The trail leads uphill to a rocky outcrop. You peer over and spot a farmhouse glimmering white in early sun, smoke curling from its chimney, likely empty at dawn. But straw in the yard, gates open wide. You count 3 guards, 2 at the barn, 1 pacing. Their swords lie within reach. They wear jerkin and mail. Ir lowers her bow. We can take by surprise or lure them away. You nod. Surprise. She notches an arrow and releases. The shaft whistles, striking the guard at the barn in the throat. He collapses. A shout rings out. In tempo with that cry, you sprint down the slope, axe raised. Ir looses again as she retreats between trees, each shot piercing mail or bone. The other 2 guards scrabble for spears. You reach the nearest, parry his thrust with your shield, then drive the haft of your axe into the pit of his stomach. He doubles over, and you finish him with a swing that parts helmet and skull. His comrade turns, but you are already moving. A second blow fails him. Blood bathes your hands. The sweet copper scent rises. You whistle low. Your men pour down, the captain behind you, then Hakon and Joran. The farmhouse door bursts inward. Tossing aside its latch, you enter a simple room. A table scarred by meals, a cradle empty, sheepskins on the floor. Silver goblets line a shelf. A brass scythe hangs on the wall. Joran gathers goblets. Hakon lifts furs. Outside, a low bleat. The barn door swings wider. Inside, sheep press against walls. You shrug. Give a series of hushed orders.
One man with rope to bind animals, another to gather straw bales, two more to guard the sole path back to shore. The captain nods and spreads men to tasks. The moaning groans of the wounded guard drift behind shuttered windows. Better they find you gone when they wake. Before leaving, you fill a water skin from the stream and drink. The day grows warmer, the sun glints off your helm. Your stomach grumbles, no meal since dawn. But victory tastes better than herring and ale. Return to the Longship. Back on the beach, the ship waits. Shields adorn its rail, crimson swirl fading from sun and salt. The oarsmen stare at your band, some grin at the furs and goblets slung from backs, or the sheep bleeding where they are bound. You chuckle, then signal them forward. The gangplank tumbles, the Longship takes aboard its harvest. Once every animal and sack is aboard, you clamp shields to rail and seat yourself beside the helmsman. You hold the oar, fingers still slick with blood and sweat. At your nod, the boat surges away from shore. The beach shrinks, the farm a tiny white dot amid pines. You scan the horizon for sails. None. Safe for now. As the oars fall into rhythm, conversation rekindles. Jordan raps her knuckles on the shield. By Thor's beard, that was good. Hakken hoots, clanging axes to shields. Behind you, ear strings another arrow, gazing off toward the cliffs. She hums a tune, like wind through reeds. Even the helmsman allows a grin, his first of the day. Midday feast. An hour passes, the hull cuts through waves like a whale's back. At midday, the call for skull rises, and you sit atop a plank-turned broad table. Rations are doled out, oat cakes, dried fish, wedges of goat cheese salted firm as rock. Ale, warmed by sun, pours into wooden cups. You hand one to the captain and say, "To Njord," knocking lips. The captain lifts his cup. "To Njord and to Ulfkar's glory," he adds, using your true name. A cheer follows. You drink, the ale harsh on tongue but relief in belly. Forked tongues of smoke ripple from torches at the prow, simple offerings to the sea. Stories circulate, how Air picked off a sentry from 100 paces, how Hakken wrestled a bull and drank ale from its horn, how Yoren bested a rival shield maiden in arm wrestling last eve. Laughter rattles. Even the helmsman joins, recounting how he nearly capsized 2 oars in storm, but wrestled them back. You listen, nodding. Bonds forged by blade are sealed here by shared drink. Afternoon drills and divination. Bellies half full. The helmsman calls order. Shields are lifted, axes strapped on. You gather on the deck for drills. The captain commands the formation. Shield wall at the bow, axe redade behind. Sunlight flickers between shields as you practice stepping and blocking. Each clang of wood on steel resounds. Sweat beads your brow. After drills, you visit the seer. She sits in the stern, her back against the dragon's tail carved into wood. A shallow bowl of ale is before her. She dips fingers in, swirls the liquid, then closes her eyes. Smoke from a small brazier drifts around her. You kneel, bowing head. Northeast lies blood and treasure, but beware the falcon's shadow. She points skyward. You glance up, no falcon, only seagulls circling, yet her words linger. Falcon. Perhaps the rival chieftain flies his banner adorned with that bird. A warning then. Watchers may be in the hills. You press her for more, but she only smiles, lips cracked at the edges. The sea turns many ways, she says cryptically. You leave contemplative. The sun slants west already. There will be time for raiding before dusk, and you would not squander a moment. The evening raid. The new shore appears, low cliffs draped in heather, green fields beyond. From the deck you spy dwellings, perhaps an entire village. Smoke curls from hearths. You confer with the captain, pointing to the tallest building, a timber great hall, its roof thatched but stout. Likely refuge for chieftain and stock of goods, a prize worthy of your strength. You signal landing. Oars arc, the prow slides into shallow tide. Once more the gangplank falls. You stride forward, shield high. Oarsmen scramble behind you, hauling ropes. The beach is quiet, awash in evening gold. You storm into the field, grass brushing knees, shouts rising. Farmers and women shriek, rushing to slam doors. Children's cries echo among walls.
You awaken before the sun fully crests the eastern horizon, roused only by the faintest glow tracing the edges of your shoji screens. The tatami mat beneath you is cool and firm, its reed fibers whispering of centuries of use. You lie motionless for a moment, allowing the hush of dawn to settle over your spirit. Outside, the gravel in the courtyard is carefully raked into concentric circles around a solitary stone lantern, an arrangement you know has been freshly tended by the temple's gardener under moonlight. Through the thin rice paper walls, you can just make out the silhouette of maple branches, their leaves still dark, murmuring in the earliest breeze. Here, in this minimalist chamber, worldly cares feel distant, as if they belong to another life. Sliding from your futon, you place both feet on the woven matting and bow deeply to the alcove's tokonoma. The hanging scroll, a sumi-e rendering of Mount Fuji at dawn, seems alive in its stark simplicity, the bold stroke of the mountain's peak contrasting with the soft wash of morning mist. You breathe in the faint aroma of incense from last night's offering at the small lacquered stand, sandalwood mingled with the metallic tang of freshly ground ink. It is a scent that always grounds you, rooting your mind in the present moment. This ritual bow is your daily reminder of impermanence, of beauty that arises only to fade, and of the warrior's path you have unwaveringly chosen. As the first temple bell tolls, low, resonant, measured, you cross the room to your zabuton cushion. Zazen is your first task, seated meditation that strips away the eddies of thought and emotion. You fold your legs into lotus position, the pressure against your ankles biting pleasantly, a physical counterpoint to the stillness of the mind. Spine erect, chin gently tucked, you place your hands in the cosmic mudra, thumbs lightly touching. For 30 slow breaths, you watch each inhale draw the air through your nostrils, cool and precise, and each exhale release any trace of desire or distraction. Thoughts drift by, memories of past battles, concerns for the harvest, fleeting images of laughter shared with comrades, but you let them pass, detached, like autumn leaves floating downstream. By the final breath, your body has settled into a harmonious silence. The world outside your eyelids is reduced to pure awareness of being. After rising, you perform kinhin, walking meditation, tracing the edge of the tatami in measured, deliberate steps. Heel to toe to heel, your gait is a study in balance, each movement as precise as a blade's edge. In this deceptively simple exercise, you cultivate continuous mindfulness. The world is no longer compartmentalized into sitting and moving, but flows seamlessly from one moment to the next. You pass the open doorway and pause to bow again toward the Hanzon, the shrine where the ancestral katana rests. The sword's lacquered tsuba and curved blade gleam slightly in the dawn light, reminding you that your training honors not only technique, but lineage and loyalty. Clad now in your kikogi and hakama, proud attire of the samurai class, you step onto the polished boards of the dojo. The dew still clings to the wooden planks beyond the threshold, and you can smell the fresh, earthy scent of cedar as warm morning air drifts in. At the far end stands your sensei, a venerable warrior whose stern gaze softens only when he observes genuine commitment. He holds a shinai, the bamboo staff that has been both your ally and your taskmaster for years. You bow deeply, eyes lowered, and take your place in the line of students. Suburi begins, thousands of repetitive swings, each one a lesson in form, balance, and intention. Your sword arm arcs outward, the bamboo singing like wind over temple bells,
You feel the subtle vibration travel down your wrist, through your elbow, and into your core. Then, pivoting on the balls of your feet, you complete the cut with a twist of the hips, returning to kame as if drawn by an invisible cord. The rhythm is almost hypnotic. Cut, reset, breathe, cut again, until muscles tremble and sweat beads along your brow. But it is in this crucible of exertion that discipline is forged. When your body protests, your mind learns to insist on purpose. After full minutes of suburi, your strokes become sharper, more efficient. Your breathing slows, integrated into the motion itself. With the bamboo sword sheathed at your side, since they call you forward for paired kenjutsu kata, you partner with the younger samurai, his eyes eager yet respectful. Together you move through the prescribed sequences: the draw of the sword, nukitsuke, the diagonal strike, kesagiri, the rising parry, jodan uke, the retreat, tai sabaki. Every gesture is deliberate. There is no room for hesitation. In the moment your blades cross, though safe in their bamboo form, you taste the tension of combat, the dialogue between attack and defense. You learn to read your partner's intention in the slightest shift of weight, the narrowing of the eyes. As you complete the final cut and bow in unison, you feel the unity of purpose that transcends mere technique. Having honored the martial tradition, you step out into the tea garden for charo, the way of tea. Beneath the canopy of maple and pine, you kneel before a low wooden table. The garden is a microcosm of wabi-sabi: moss-covered stones, weathered lanterns, a raked gravel bed sculpted into undulating lines. You retrieve the lacquered bowl, filling its cool surface against your palms, and pour hot water from the iron kettle, the rosewood lid hissing softly. Then you add the bright green powdered matcha and whisk with the bamboo chasen until a pale froth forms on the surface. Each motion is executed with solemn grace: the tilt of the bowl, the angle of the whisk, the slow rotation that blends tea and water. With the final flourish, you present the bowl to the sensei, who nods in approval before passing it to you. You raise the vessel, admire the simple beauty of its form, and sip. The bitterness and warmth wash over you, centering your spirit for the tasks ahead. Returning to the veranda that overlooks the dojo, you prepare for your calligraphy lesson. The scholar's tools are arranged before you: inkstone, sumi stick, brush, and sheets of fine rice paper. With each grind of the ink stick against the wet stone, you feel the weight of centuries of tradition. The dark pool that forms is more than pigment. It is a medium of thought and expression. Taking the brush, you begin to trace the character for mu, which means nothingness. In bold strokes, the brush responds to pressure. A firm press yields a thick line, a gentle touch, a whisper-thin stroke. Your hand trembles slightly, but you welcome that imperfection. Each line carries the uniqueness of the moment, the subtle quiver of your spirit. One misaligned stroke sends the ink bleeding across the fibers, and you must begin anew. With humility, you arc your back and restart, knowing that perfection lies not in errorless execution, but in the steadfast pursuit of mastery. A knock at the stable door signals it is time to tend to your mount. In the stable courtyard, shafts of sunlight penetrate through wooden slats, illuminating dust motes that dance in the air. Your horse, a sturdy bay with a glossy coat, nuzzles your palm as you approach. With the stiff bristled brush, you groom every inch of its body, feeling the warmth of its muscles beneath the hide. You check the saddle, adjusting straps so that the leather fits snugly without chafing. The stirrups are oiled and free of slack. In this ritual of care, you acknowledge the bond between rider and steed. In battle, your lives will depend on each other's trust, speed, and endurance. Only through meticulous attention can such trust be forged. By midday, the castle's courtyard buzzes with quiet activity. Under the blossoms of a massive cherry tree, whose petals spill like pale confetti upon the stones. You join your fellow samurai for a simple meal. Bamboo leaves cradle rice balls studded with pickled plum. Slices with smoky grilled fish are passed around on lacquered trays. Conversation is reserved, measured. News of the domain's rice harvest, updates on carpenters repairing the battlements, plans for the forthcoming festival in honor of Hachiman, warrior god and divine protector. You sip cool tea as petals drift in soft arcs around you, each blossom a fleeting reminder of life's transience. In this moment of communal peace, the rigors of training and the responsibilities of service feel like distant echoes. And as the sun climbs toward its zenith, you rise, folding your cloth with care. The afternoon duties await. A strategy meeting with the daimyo's advisors, a patrol along the western wall to inspect for signs of disrepair. Perhaps a session of Kyudo, archery to refine your aim. But for now, you allow yourself a final stretch beneath the cherry blossom.
Before the first pale light of dawn has crept across the sky, you wake to the quiet hiss of embers still glowing in the forge hearth below. The small chamber that serves as your sleeping quarters feels cool and dim, the rough-hewn wooden walls laced with the faint, lingering scent of coal smoke from yesterday's labors. The narrow ladder beside the simple pallet bed creaks softly as you slide down, each rung worn smooth by years and daily use. A single lantern, its oil reservoir nearly spent, casts trembling shadows that dance atop barrels of charcoal and sacks of wrought iron billets. You pause at the threshold of the forge, inhaling deeply. There is a primordial comfort in the mingled aromas of burning coal, molten metal, and oiled leather. The low heat seeps upward from the furnace below, warming your face and the woolen cloak you pull about your shoulders. With an outstretched hand, you shut the lantern's shutter against the early haze, plunging the workshop into half-light punctuated only by the rubicund glow of coals. Descending the last steps, you reach the forge floor, where your apprentices linger in the shadows, wide-eyed youths with smudged faces and restless energy. In the half-dark, their outlines flicker faintly as they tend to the low embers, readying them for the fury of the fire. Without a word, you step forward, slipping off your cloak and shaking out its coarse wool to clear the dust. The fresh morning chill dissipates instantly, replaced by the furnace's warmth, a tangible promise of creation. Lighting the lantern at the edge of the forge, you fill the bellows reservoir with fresh air and settle your leather apron around your waist. The leather is softened and darkened by years of soot, its surface marred with tiny scars, testaments to stray sparks and the occasional slip of hammer or tongs. With a practiced hand, you adjust the bellows nozzle, channeling your breath into the hearth until the coals catch, their dull embers erupting into a pillar of flame. "Good morning, master," one apprentice murmurs, her voice hoarse from sleeping in the chill. She tucks a stray lock of hair beneath a kerchief and lifts a bucket of fresh charcoal, offering it to you with a reverent nod. "Let it burn clean," you instruct, voice calm but resonant. "No wet chunks, dry wood, good and bright." She obeys, tipping charcoal into the firebox, where it crackles and exudes pale smoke, mingling with the furnace's roar until the air hums with heat. You step back to survey the fire through the forge's iron-rimmed window, gauging its temper. Satisfied, you motion to your apprentices, "Bring the iron stock." Moments later, two youths carry in a tray of solid bars, long lengths of wrought iron still cold and unyielding. The rhythmic creak of the wooden cart's wheels echoes in the vaulted space, a sharp contrast to the fire's roar. Selecting a single bar, you clamp it between stout iron tongs and lower it into the inferno. The metal surface swirls from silver gray to glowing orange, then to a white-hot brilliance at the end where you grasp it firmly. The tongs vibrate with the metal's pulse,
a subtle tremor that courses through your arm and reminds you of the raw power contained in this humble lump of earth-forged iron. At the anvil, polished smooth by countless strikes, you position the glowing bar's heated tip. The hammer in your hand feels alive, its weight balanced perfectly. With each swing, hammer on iron on anvil, you shape the metal, coaxing it to bend where once it refused. Sparks erupt in miniature supernovas, trailing like meteor fragments before vanishing into the shadows. The rhythmic clang carries through the forge, a metal symphony that sets the pace for your soul. Your first task of the day is a familiar one, forging horseshoes for Sir Bandrick's prized destrier, a stallion noted for speed and stubbornness. The hoof shoe must be strong yet flexible, precisely contoured to protect the horse's hoof without altering its gait. You draw the metal, flattening and spreading it, then bend each side around a form carved from seasoned oak. The apprentices watch in silent awe, absorbing the craft in the time-honored manner, a silent apprenticeship of observation. Once the curve is formed, you punch nail holes with the chisel, each hole spaced with exacting precision. Too close, you murmur, adjusting your aim by a hair's breadth before striking. Too far apart, and the quarters will crack under pressure. Finally, the horseshoe emerges, a perfect arc, its nail holes gleaming, edges chamfered just so. You plunge it into a trough of water. The hiss of steam is sharp as the metal's temperature drops in a heartbeat, hardening the iron's crystalline structure. Steady, you warn, as the blade of the chisel meets the cooled shoe. The apprentices stand by with buckets of warm water in case the metal cracks. But the shoe rings true, finishing with a satisfying ring that resonates through the forge. By mid-morning, the yard outside the forge doors is alive with villagers bringing items, brass pots dented by overuse, iron rakes dulled from seasons of plowing, scythe blades nicked by hidden stones in the field. Each new request brings with it its unique challenge, an opportunity to renew or repurpose metals that once served another purpose. You welcome them with a nod, collecting each item and laying it upon the workbench for inspection. A weathered farmer steps forward, holding up a plowshare, its edge beaten and jagged. "If you can't sharpen it, I'll lose half my crop before the end of the day," he grumbles. "You'll have it by noon," you assure him, examining the share's blade. The metal is sound, its curve unwarped, so you clamp it into the vise, its grooves biting into the wrought iron handle. With rasp and file, you remove the nicks methodically, then refine the edge with coarse grit. A final turn on the whetstone, apprentices' hands guiding the motion, brings the share to a mirror-like finish. Even the farmer looks impressed, brushing his calloused fingers across the blade's steel. "Works like new," he grins, handing you a copper penny. While the furnace burns low, you snatch a quick swallow from your water flask, then reach for your tongs once again. A traveler arrives, a knight in battered chainmail, his visage tired but proud. He carries a sword with a cracked guard, the pommel loose and the crosspiece bent from battle. Reverently, he presents it to you, as one might offer a relic. You accept the weapon, feeling its brittle points under your fingertips. "This metal has seen war," you say. "I'll weld it true." Gathering small wrought iron rods, you heat each until malleable, then press them against the cracked guard with the anvil's edge, fusing the two pieces under the unforgiving clash of hammer. Sparks swirl like caged fireflies, and the proof of the weld is made under your hammer's measure. The joint rings as strong as the original metal. You tighten the pommel screw, test the blade's balance, and sheathe it. The knight offers heartfelt thanks, a nod of respect that warms you more than the forge's flame. At the midday bell, you halt activities to rest and share a simple meal beneath the forge's low overhang, where a long plank serves as table and bench. The apprentices gather, some eager to glimpse your next work, others simply relishing the brief respite. Bread is passed in halves, accompanied by chunks of goat's cheese flavored with herbs. A deep wooden tankard, one of your own early works, holds pale ale, its foam still intact. Talk drifts, the price of iron ore has risen with the recent war in the north. Rumors swirl of a traveling smith using new molding techniques. You listen intently, seasoning each morsel of gossip with a measured News can be as sharp as a file. In the wrong hands, it cuts too deep. You weigh its worth like ingots on the scale, discerning which tidbits warrant further investigation after the meal. Rested, you return to the forge. The hours pass steadily, with each blow of the hammer shaping raw metal into functional art. Your next commission is more intricate, a set of ornate hinges destined for the newly built church's heavy oak doors. The pattern is elaborate, flourishing scrolls, intertwining vines, blossoms captured in cold iron. You begin by drawing out long, slender strips of iron, then sawing them to precise lengths. Each piece is heated and coiled around a mandrel, shaped with chisels and punches to form elegant spirals. Apprentices file each curl until the metal yields to your vision. Between blows, you reflect on your apprenticeship under Master Haldrick, the old smith who first taught you how to read the metal's glow as though it spoke to you. You recall his patient voice. "The iron tells you what it wants to be," he'd say, eyes alight with fervor. "Listen." You smile at the memory, knowing now that the forge is as much a teacher as any man. As afternoon light filters through a single window, illuminating motes of dust suspended in the heated air, you pause to inspect your work. The hinges lie in a neat row, each spiral tip matching the next as though they were siblings born of the same hearth. You quench them in oil, the liquid sputtering in fine mist as it meets hot steel. Then, with polished cotton, you apply oil by hand, coaxing the metal to glisten like moonlight against dark wood. Your final task before closing the forge is sharpening a chef's knife bound for the.
As our voyage through the hushed corridors of time now reaches its gentle terminus, I want to thank each of you for stepping back with me into those hidden moments when history's grand tapestry was woven by ordinary hands. Tonight, we have marched shoulder to shoulder with Roman legionaries, their sandals stirring the dust of gravel roads as they upheld an empire's code. We have knelt on the banks of the Nile, listening to the rhythmic tap of chisels as stonecutters shaped obelisks beneath an Egyptian sun. We have felt the spray of the North Sea on our faces, oars dipping in unison from a Viking longship's carved prow. We have traced the silent discipline of the samurai's blade, watching razor-sharp steel gleam in the rising Japanese dawn. And we have warmed ourselves by the glow of a medieval forge, hearing the hiss of metal meeting anvil fire, sparks dancing like fireflies in the dusky air. These whispers of the everyday of artisans, sailors, warriors, and builders are the quiet counterpoint to the thunderous clash of battles and the sweeping edicts of emperors. They remind us that history's true heartbeat lies not only in conquests and crowns, but in the hands that tilled the soil, the voices that recited prayers at dawn, and the dreams that flickered in candlelit workshops. Perhaps it was the steady rhythm of a mason's hammer that lulled you into reverie tonight, or the soft chorus of Viking oars that carried you across imagined seas. Maybe the precision of the samurai's kata left you contemplative, or the glow of molten iron sparked a warm sense of human perseverance. If these gentle tales of vanished lives have soothed your spirit, I invite you, when the world outside your window quiets and the stars peer in through your curtains, to subscribe and join our nightly expeditions further into the past. Each week, we'll uncover new realms, the bustling marketplaces of Ming Dynasty China, the candlelit halls of Gothic cathedrals, the winding canals of Renaissance Venice, or the vast steppes where Mongol horsemen thundered under endless skies.
Let me know in the comments which era calls to you most urgently, or share the tiniest detail that captured your imagination this evening. Was it the swirl of a Roman soldier's cloak, the nicked edge of a Viking axe, the flourish of a samurai sash? Your reflections shape our next journey. May the gentle cadence of history guide you into a peaceful slumber, your dreams echoing the soft patter of chisels on stone, the lullaby of distant oars, the whisper of steel on silk, and the comforting crackle of a forge's embers. And when dawn breaks, may you awaken with fresh wonder, ready to greet both the known world and the great unknown of tomorrow with open eyes and an adventurous heart. Until we meet again beneath the vault of history's grand expanse, rest well, dear traveler. Good night, and may your dreams be rich with the secrets of ages long past.